Here we are on the home page, and today we're going to take a look at what kind of actions you have available in this quick list as a buyer. Also, trading agreements, and what do you do if you make a mistake? For example, you're the seller and you debit the wrong account. So let's get started. Over here, the first one is entering a transaction as a buyer. I don't recommend that you even use that. This is where you could easily make a mistake. Remember, it's the seller who debits an account when there's a sale. There's not really any reason to use this. Give a recommendation. Clicking on this brings up a screen showing all the recommendations that you have already given. To give a new recommendation, one of the ways to do it from here is to click on this button, give a recommendation, and here you'll select who it is you're giving the recommendation to from a drop-down list, and we see that it's from our exchange. Give it a brief title, type in your recommendation, and submit. The selected user will be informed by email when you submit this recommendation. Next, send an online trading slip. I'll show you what that looks like. And this takes a little bit of explanation, so let's skip over to the user's guide, and I'm going to go through that with you. If you can't meet face-to-face with the seller to hand over a paper trading slip, or don't wish to post or fax one, send an online trading slip using this form. This online version has no signature, so it's not a legal document, but the email sent to the seller contains your name and email address, which it gets from our database. Before sending an online trading slip, check first with the seller if it's acceptable to do so. Select another group if the seller isn't in our exchange. You do this if the seller is in a remote exchange. Otherwise, ignore this drop-down list of exchanges. Select the seller's name and account number from the Send To drop-down list. The seller will not appear on the list if they don't have an email address. Fill in the amount of the transaction and a description of the trade. The seller receives an email, the online trading slip, which authorizes him or her to enter the information into the Enter Transaction feature of his or her account. That debits your account for the amount indicated and credits the seller's. You'll receive by email the counterfoil of the online trading slip, an acknowledgement of sending the slip. It contains the same details as on the online trading slip and represents your confirmation of paying. Store it in an email folder in case there's a dispute with the seller. Later on, we're going to get into the trading agreement. And at the bottom of the trading slip, you'll see a little reminder note about what it's for. It's purely for notification purposes. It's an online check that you can optionally send to a seller, which confirms that you have accepted their price and authorizes them to debit your account. Sending the online trading slip is not a payment, as it doesn't debit your account or credit the seller's. You'll be identified to the seller by your name and email address, which will be taken from the database, and the date will also be sent automatically. The name of the seller won't appear on the Send To drop-down list if they have no email address. To find a name quickly, press the first letter of the seller's surname repeatedly if necessary. Okay, so going back, sending an order form, an online query order form. Now here at the top, since I'm in the administrative side of things and I, as the administrator, have no offerings, this little note comes up, and this will happen if ever you want to order something from somebody who has no offerings and a negative balance, which I do. You should not be ordering anything. The seller will be advised not to sell to you. However, in my personal account, of course, which I don't have up on the screen, that's where I have all of my offers and transactions. On this order form, you have the exchange at the top, and then here's a drop-down list to select the seller, or you can enter their account number here if you have it. Give a description of what you're ordering. Give the quantity. Let me scroll down a bit. Any comments or queries that you have, Click on this to send a copy to yourself. You'll have to preview it before you can send it, and on the preview there will be a send button. This next part is very important. You'll find it in the user's guide. This is about trading agreements. Since buyers' accounts are debited by sellers, buyers should establish agreements with their sellers regarding when their accounts may be debited if they feel there might arise a dispute over the amount debited or a dissatisfaction with the goods or service provided. When purchases are small, buyers usually don't require an agreement with their sellers. Acceptance of the goods or service by the buyer is usually sufficient authorization for the seller to debit the buyer's account. When purchases are larger, it's not good practice for buyers to allow sellers to debit their accounts without authorization. Buyers should establish agreements with their sellers before a sale takes place. An agreement should consider what amount will be debited after delivery and what constitutes authorization for the seller to debit the buyer's account. In many instances, it's not possible for sellers to give a firm price, especially when providing services at an hourly rate. For example, building work, mechanical repairs. In such cases, the traders need to agree what will happen if the price is too high or what to do if it appears that the price will be beyond expectation. The agreement should also state how the buyer will authorize the buyer to enter the trade, in other words, debit the buyer's account. It should further consider how the trading partners will resolve a dispute or if the buyer is dissatisfied with the goods or service. Agreements can be verbal or written. The exchange site provides various tools to facilitate agreements. The invoice facility allows the seller to send the buyer an invoice indicating the price for the goods or services provided. If the buyer is in agreement with the price and satisfied with what's been received, an electronic or paper trading slip, which I showed you previously, should be sent to the seller. This is the buyer's acknowledgement of receipt, token of satisfaction, and signal to the seller that the trade may be entered. The seller should not enter the trade until the trading slip has been received. Some other important points are raised in the Q&A section of the user's guide. I'm going to go through a few of those. Here's one. What is to stop me from just entering payments into my account so that I get lots of credits? The answer, you don't need credits to trade, so there's no point in this. In any case, your credits are someone else's debits, and they'll question your false trades with them. Your balance, which is open for everyone to see, will also reveal what you're doing. There's no need to cheat in the community because you can simply go into debt and pay back what you've received by delivering goods and services to others at a later time. Another one is, what if someone doesn't pay me for work I've done for them? The answer, it's impossible. You, the seller, are responsible for entering or getting entered the transaction information, and you'll be immediately credited for it. In this exchange, the buyer is the passive party. What if my service is popular but I can't find anything I want? What's the use of a large credit balance if I can't spend it? The answer, don't trade unless you feel there's something you can get in exchange. As more and more people join the community, the more likely it becomes that someone will have something you want. Encourage others to join. How are goods and services valued? Traders value their own goods and services using the one-to-one relationship between their exchange's currency, in our case the ARC, and the national currency. The law of supply and demand applies, but within the context of a closed group. This frequently differs from the situation outside. Sometimes, especially when folks are just getting started, mistakes can be made, so here's a few pointers on how to correct them. This person asks, I'm the buyer. I thought I had to pay the seller, but debited her instead. How do I reverse the trade? In the exchange, all trades are entered by the seller, or on behalf of the seller. You can't reverse the trade, only delete it. Log into your account and on your personal homepage, click on My Statement of Account. That will list your latest trades. Click on the description of the trade you want to delete. That will bring up the Edit Delete Transaction form. Click the Delete button and that will remove the trade. Another one. I debited the wrong buyer. How do I correct that? Click on My Statement of Account in the middle of your personal homepage. That displays your most recent trades. Click on the description of the trade with the error, and that brings up the Edit Delete Transaction form. Click the Delete button to delete the trade. After that, re-enter the trade with the correct details. And similarly, if you entered the wrong amount for a trade, you would do the same thing. You'd bring up the same form, and you could then click on the amount and click on the Update Record button. Similarly, if you entered a wrong description for a trade, you click on My Statement of Account, displaying your most recent trades. Click on the description of the trade with the error, and of course, again, the Edit Delete Transaction form comes up. Correct the description and click on Update Record button. And if you have to cancel a trade, how do I refund the buyer? You need to delete the transaction. That will eliminate the buyer's debt and your credit. Click on My Statement of Account in the middle of your personal homepage, displaying your most recent trades. Click on the description of the trade you want to cancel, and you again get that same form. Click the Delete button to delete the transaction. To finish up, we're back on the homepage. If you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see the areas that we were just talking about. My account balance, my statement of account. Next time, we will get into some of the items on the menu bar and dig into some other features. So thanks again for joining me. Happy trading!